not just being correct, but the experience of believing in something and thinking it to be really, really the truth, and then coming to an understanding that what they believed was utterly false, and having basically their whole paradigm crumble. And I shouldn't say they, because I'm talking about me and I'm talking about you. And we need to go through that to really begin to understand how easy it is to be blinded by confirmation bias, and how we form our views, and really be able to understand how easy it is for the prover to prove what we think. And confirmation bias is a type of cognitive bias and a systematic error of inductive reasoning. And I don't know, I kind of feel like inductive reasoning is given a very bad name in the take on it that is being given here on the Wikipedia page that I'm quoting in the curriculum, because I would be willing to bet that the person who wrote that is a student of formal logic and has been taught that in an academic setting, or is quoting a textbook of it, which the same would apply to. And I should probably do my grammar work on that and actually find out who wrote this. You can do that with Wikipedia. You can find out who actually wrote that and what their background is. And in some cases I've actually dug into that on Wikipedia, and it's important sometimes if you're really dealing with something that's critical to know that about. In this case I haven't done it. But yeah, I feel, because the inductive reasoning, as I was saying earlier, is sort of the ground of your own observation and experience, and that is really, especially in academic settings, which are very much training grounds for our culture, there's no interest there in promoting your ability to use your senses, and to rely on your own experience to come up with your own answers. And there's very much the opposite, which is, don't rely on that. What you think doesn't matter. Here's what we think, and this is the truth, and just listen to us because we know and you don't, and we're the teacher and you're the student. And it's kind of again into that homogeneity of one size fits all, that it doesn't matter what your senses tell you, it doesn't matter what your experience is. No matter who you are when you come into an academic setting, you are the student and the teacher is the teacher. And it doesn't matter what you have to offer in terms of perspective. You're there to learn and they are there to teach, and there is no interchangeability of that, and I've tried to very much myself in class not be that way, and try to listen and learn what I can from students who have studied these things themselves and know and have a valuable perspective to offer on the subject, you know. So yeah, I don't feel like it is a systematic error of inductive reasoning. I feel like cognitive bias is inherent. It's part of deductive reasoning as well, you know, because what you're deducing about a situation, whatever it is you're observing and learning about, is your own experience is filtering that in certain ways. Your own previous, you know, your own preconceived notions of the situation and the people and the event and all of that is all being filtered through your own system of thought and your own belief system, your own reality tunnel. So it's not just a matter of it being a systematic error of inductive reasoning. It's a systematic error of logic itself, and it's basically what logic is for, is to try and get as much of that out of your thought process as you can to get down to the objective ground of fact, of existence, what has actually occurred, with as little of the bias and the perceptual kind of the choosing of perceptual fields. You know, the fact that you would extremely emphasize one part of a fact or a theory and completely ignore certain other ones that are far less convenient for the theory that you feel most strongly attached to, you know. And sometimes that turns out to be that you're able to go with that theory. Sometimes your beliefs are correct, but you have to go through a system of logic to be able to know that, especially when you're trying to explain why that is the case to another person, presenting a premise for an argument, you know. If you want to just not talk to anybody and go do your own thing and never have to explain to anyone else why you know what you know, then I guess this won't be necessary for you in that situation, but that's a pretty unlikely situation unless you're going to go be a hermit somewhere or, just not interact with humanity at all. But if you are, then you're going to need to explain and try and help other people understand at least your point of view in a friendly way, talking with your friends or family or whatever, trying to get some understanding from them about why you think the way you think, So this is the Trivium method is not just something that's important for academic settings or formal settings of any kind. It's important for communication of any kind, in my opinion. And I would say probably the opinion of a lot of others too. So I think that that pretty much gets me into logical fallacies. So let's move on to logical fallacies. Now, something I really want to point out with fallacies, and it's something that I say here, it's actually the first point I make in this 10 Commandments of Logic that I actually found this on the internet, and I actually tried to do some research on where it originally came from, and I guess it originally came from a forum. I couldn't find more information, and I really didn't do tons of research to try and find the source for it. I did do some to try and give somebody credit for the idea. But my point was that fallacies kind of get more into combining rhetoric and logic in much the same way that I've previously talked about combining grammar and logic. Logic and rhetoric are often connected through fallacies, because, as I say, the first two sentences is, or the first sentence actually, because someone uses a fallacy does not always make them wrong. It often means they are not phrasing their argument effectively or accurately. Because, and as I explained, that's kind of why I shared this in class, is because I wanted to demonstrate the fact that fallacies are not about being, are not about correctness. That there are some times when fallacies are in fact correct. You know, like for instance, with ad hominems. You know, it's not incorrect if the person is the name that you're calling them, then that's correct. But the point is that you're using that as a way to dismiss their point without talking about the grammar of their point, the body of evidence that they're using to make their point. And you're just saying that, well, you just believe this because you're this, and therefore that whole argument is incorrect. And I mean, that's so common. You see that like so much in regular discourse in politics and in the media, especially Fox News and other related sort of news distributors, that they you know, rather than talk about the facts in a broad spectrum, they, you know, narrow it down to a very little sliver, and then say that anyone who doesn't, you know, think that sliver is the whole truth and nothing but the truth, then that person is a liberal, or whatever kind of ad hominem they're using in that particular instance. So a lot of these